John!
Clara grabbed her baby and ran. No shoes, no plan. Just 5 children and a wall of fire closing in from 3 sides. "Mama!" Her oldest boy's voice cracked through the smoke. "The door's blocked." She didn't answer. Couldn't. Her lungs were already full of ash, and her bare feet were blistering on the scorched earth. Behind her, 4-year-old Lottie screamed. 8-year-old Will tripped and went down hard. And the flames kept coming. What Clara didn't know, couldn't know, was that half a mile away, the coldest man in Wyoming was about to make a choice that would change everything. This is their story. Stay until the end and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this tale travels.
John!
Clara's hand slammed against Eli's chest. "Get up, now!" Her 14-year-old son jolted awake, already reaching for the rifle that wasn't there. 2 years of being the man of the house had trained him to sleep light. What? Fire, big, move. 3 words. All she had time for. Eli was on his feet before she finished, his eyes finding the orange glow bleeding through the cabin's only window. His face went white. "Get your brother and sisters." Clara was already scooping Benny from his cradle. 2 years old, still warm from sleep, still trusting that Mama could fix anything. Kitchen door, 30 seconds. "Mama, how bad?" 29. Eli ran. Clara heard him crashing through the darkness of the main room, heard Maggie's sharp gasp, heard Will's groggy protest, cut short by his brother's hissed command. Good. Eli knew how to move people. Samuel had taught him that much before the whiskey took everything else. "Lottie." Clara crossed to her 5-year-old's pallet. Benny clutched against her chest. "Baby, wake up." Lottie's eyes opened slow, then went wide. "Mama, something smells bad." "I know. We're leaving, right now. Can you walk fast for Mama?" "I don't have my shoes." "Neither do I. We'll match." A ghost of a smile crossed Lottie's face. That smile, God, it looked just like Samuel's before he broke. Clara grabbed her daughter's hand and pulled. The kitchen was chaos. Eli had Will by the collar, half dragging the 8-year-old toward the door. Maggie stood frozen at the window, her 11-year-old face lit orange by something that shouldn't exist. "Maggie? Door, now." "Mama, the whole ridge is—" "I know what it is. Door." Maggie moved. Clara hit the kitchen door with her shoulder. It swung open and the heat slammed into her like a fist. She staggered, caught herself, kept moving. The world had gone wrong. Orange sky, black smoke, and sound a roaring that wasn't wind, wasn't thunder, wasn't anything natural. The fire was breathing. The fire was alive. And it was hungry. "Which way?" Eli appeared at her elbow. Will still gripped in one hand, his other arm wrapped around Maggie's shoulders. "Mama, which way?" Clara's eyes swept the property. East wall of flame. South wall of flame. West-west had a gap, narrow, closing, but there. "Through the pasture. Stay together. Don't stop." "Mama, that's toward the fire." "It's between the fires. There's a difference. Move." They ran. Clara's bare feet hit ground that was already warm, already cooking from the heat pressing down from above. Benny whimpered against her neck. Lottie's hand squeezed hers so hard the bones ground together. "Keep up, baby! Keep up!" "I'm trying, Mama!" A branch crashed down 10 feet to their left. Lottie screamed. Clara yanked her sideways without breaking stride. "Don't look! Just run! But run!" The gap was shrinking. Clara could see it happening in real time, the 2 fire lines reaching for each other like lovers too long apart. 50 feet of clear ground. 40. 30. "Faster!" Eli's voice cracked. "Everyone faster!" 20 feet. Clara's lungs burned. Her eyes streamed. Every breath tasted like death. 15 feet. Will stumbled. Went down. Eli hauled him up one-handed without stopping. "Ow! My knee! Shut up and run!" 10 feet. They were going to make it. Clara could see clear air on the other side, could see. The pine tree fell. No warning, no sound she could hear over the fire's roar. Just a massive trunk dropping across their path like God slamming a door. They skidded to a stop. Maggie crashed into Clara's back. Will went down again. "No!" Clara's voice came out strangled. "No! No! Mama!" Eli's face had gone gray. "Mama, we're trapped!" She looked. He was right. Fire behind them now, the gap had closed. Fire ahead, the fallen tree blazing like a funeral pyre. Fire on both sides pressing closer with every breath. Trapped. Clara Jane Whitmore, widow, mother of 5. Survivor of Samuel's drinking and Samuel's death, and 2 years of scraping by on nothing but stubbornness. She was going to watch her children burn. "Okay." Her voice didn't shake. Somehow her voice didn't shake. "Okay. Everyone come here. Come to Mama." They came. Eli still gripping Will. Maggie pressing against her side. Lottie wrapped around her leg. Benny silent against her chest, watching everything with those gray eyes that saw too much. "I need you all to listen." Clara knelt in the dirt, pulling them close. "We're going to be okay. You hear me? We're going to be—" "Mama, we're not." Maggie's voice was flat. Hollow. The voice of a child who'd learned too young that parents lie. "We're going to die." "Maggie." "It's okay." Her daughter's hand found Clara's, squeezed. "I'm not scared. I'm with you. That's enough." Something cracked in Clara's chest. Eli, her boy pretending to be a man. Maggie, her girl pretending to be brave. Will, for once, not asking questions, just burying his face in her side. Lottie sobbing quietly, clutching the fabric of her dress. Benny still watching, still trusting, still believing Mama could fix this. "I'm sorry." The words scraped out of her throat. "I'm so sorry. I tried. I tried so hard. I wanted to give you. I wanted—" Her voice broke. What could she give them now? What words were there for children about to die because their mother couldn't save them? She started to sing. The lullaby her own mother had sung back when the world was safe and death was something that happened to other people. Her voice cracked on the high notes. Smoke turned the words to ash. But she sang anyway. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word." The fire crept closer. "Mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird." Lottie's sobs quieted. Will pressed harder against her side. And if that mockingbird don't sing, the heat grew unbearable. Clara closed her eyes. "Mama's gonna buy you a diamond ring?" Hooves. Clara's eyes snapped open. That sound pounding through the fire's roar, impossible, unmistakable. Hooves. Coming fast. Coming through the flames themselves. "Mama!" Eli grabbed her arm. "Mama, someone's—" The horse exploded through the wall of fire. Black. Huge. Eyes rolling white with terror, mane smoking where embers had caught. And on its back, a man. Clara couldn't see his face through the smoke and shimmer of heat. Just a dark shape, broad shoulders, a hat pulled low. He sat that horse like they were one creature like nothing. Not fire, not fear, not the gates of hell itself could unseat him. The horse reared. The rider held, and then his voice cut through the inferno rough as broken stone. "How many?" Clara stared. "How many?" Louder now. "Ma'am, how many you got?" "5." Her voice came out a croak. "5 children." Something flickered across the shadow of his face. A calculation, a decision. "Can't take all of you at once." He was already off the horse, hitting the ground in a crouch. His coat was smoldering at the hem. He didn't seem to notice. "Gotta make 2 runs." "No." Eli stepped forward, Benny still clutched against him. "Mama and the little ones first. I'll wait." The stranger's eyes found Eli through the smoke. For a moment, something human cracked through his hard expression. Brave kid. I ain't a kid. Didn't say you were. The stranger pulled a wet blanket from his saddle, when had he prepared that, and thrust it toward Clara. You the baby, the little girl. Wrap up. Get on the horse. Now. I'm not leaving my... You leave now, you all live. You stay together, you all die. His voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. Ain't got time to argue. Choose. Clara looked at her children. Eli, Maggie, Will. Then at Lottie trembling against her leg. At Benny too young to understand. Promise me. She grabbed the stranger's arm. His muscle felt like iron. Promise me you'll come back for them. I don't make promises. Then I don't go. Silence. Or what passed for silence in a world made of fire. The stranger's jaw tightened. I give you my word. That good enough? It'll have to be. She took the blanket, wrapped Benny, reached for Lottie. No! Her 5-year-old clung to her leg. No, Mama, I won't leave Eli and Maggie and Will. Baby, please. I won't. The stranger crouched down. His face came into view for the first time. Hard angles, a scar running from temple to jaw, eyes the color of winter storms. He looked like something carved from the same stone as the mountains. He also looked tired, bone-deep tired. Hey! His voice went soft. Not gentle, he didn't seem capable of gentle, but soft. What's your name? Lottie pressed her face into Clara's dress. She's Lottie, Will offered. She's scared of everything. Will, Maggie hissed. Lottie. The stranger tried the name. That's pretty. You like horses, Lottie. No answer. He reached into his pocket, pulled out something small, held it where she could see. A horse, carved from pale wood, perfect in every detail. Made this myself. You can have it, but you gotta come with me to get it. Lottie's face emerged from Clara's dress. Her eyes found the wooden horse. For keeps? For keeps. She looked up at Clara. Such big eyes. Such impossible trust. Mama. Clara's heart split clean in two. Go with the man, baby. Mama's coming right after. You promise? I promise. Lottie released her grip. The stranger swept her up with one arm, handed her the wooden horse, and nodded toward the saddle. Mount up. Hold the baby tight. Don't let go no matter what. Clara climbed onto the horse. It danced beneath her, wanting to bolt. She clutched Benny with one arm, Lottie with the other, and felt the stranger's hand steady the animal with impossible calm. Eli. She looked at her oldest. Take care of them. I know, Mama. I love you, all of you. We know. Maggie tried to smile, failed. Go. Let him save you so he can come save us. The stranger grabbed the reins and ran. Clara had seconds to see her 3 older children shrinking behind her, seconds to memorize their faces lit orange by the fire, closing in seconds to pray she wasn't abandoning them to death. Then they hit the flame wall. Heat slammed into her from every direction. The wet blanket sizzled where embers landed. Lottie screamed against her chest. Clara curled over both children, trying to shield them with her body, trying to through. They were through. She gasped, choked, coughed ash and smoke, and tried to breathe air that was still wrong, but wasn't killing her anymore. Creek bed. The stranger's voice came from somewhere beside her. 200 yards north, water. Stay there. My children. I'm going back. He slapped the horse's flank. Go! The horse bolted. Clara twisted in the saddle, trying to see him, trying to... He was already gone, running back toward the wall of fire, running back into hell for 3 children who weren't his blood, weren't his responsibility, weren't anything to him except strangers who needed saving. The creek bed appeared through the smoke. Clara half fell from the horse, staggering into the shallow water, with Lottie and Benny clutched against her. Cold. The cold was so sharp it hurt. She collapsed onto her knees and let the water soak through her ruined dress, let it cool the burns on her feet she hadn't even felt until now. "Mama," Lottie's voice was tiny, "is the man coming back?" Clara stared at the fire painting the sky. "Yes." "How do you know?" "I don't." The truth scraped her throat raw. "I'm just hoping." They waited. Benny started to cry small, exhausted whimpers. Clara rocked him automatically, her eyes fixed on the flames. 1 minute. 2. 5. The fire roared on. No hoofbeats. No voices. Nothing but destruction eating the only world Clara had ever known. "He's not coming." Lottie started to shake. "Mama, he's not coming. And Eli and Maggie and Will are gonna hooves." Clara's head snapped up. Through the smoke, 2 shapes emerged. 2 horses. The stranger's black stallion, and another a chestnut mare she didn't recognize. And on the mare, Mama. Will's voice. Will's face. Will's body leaning so far out of the saddle that Eli had to grab his collar to keep him from falling. "Mama, we made it!" Clara was running before she knew she'd moved. Splashing through the creek, ignoring the rocks cutting her burned feet, ignoring everything except reaching her children. She pulled Will from the horse first, then Maggie, then Eli, gathering all 3 of them against her body, and holding so tight she heard ribs creak. "You're alive!" She was crying. When had she started crying? "You're alive! You're alive! You're—" The man came back. Maggie's voice was muffled against Clara's shoulder. "Just like he said. He had another horse, don't know where he got it, made us ride double. He went back for us." Will pulled back to look at her, his face streaked with tears and ash and something like wonder. "Nobody does that, Mama. Nobody goes into a fire twice for strangers." Clara looked up. The stranger, the man, stood apart from them, holding both horses' reins. In the dim glow of the distant flames, she saw him clearly for the first time. Tall, broad, the kind of build that came from years of hard labor. His face was all sharp angles and old scars weathered by sun and wind, and something worse. Grief, maybe, or guilt, the kind that carved itself into a man's bones. He met her gaze. His expression gave nothing away. "Thank you." Clara's voice shook. I can't. You hurt." His eyes swept over the children with clinical efficiency. "Any of them hurt. No, I don't think—" "Good." He turned toward his horse. "My ranch is 4 miles east. You'll stay there till we figure out what's next." "Wait." Clara struggled to her feet, her children still pressed against her. "Please. What's your name?" He paused. His back remained turned. "Stone. Caleb Stone. Mr. Stone. Just Stone." His voice carried no warmth, no invitation. "Get the children on the horses. We need to move." He mounted without looking back. They rode through the darkness. Clara sat behind Stone on the black stallion, Benny asleep against her chest, Lottie drooping against her back. Eli led the other horse with Maggie and Will pressed together in the saddle. No one spoke. The fire faded behind them, reduced to a distant orange glow. Clara's cabin was gone. Her garden. Samuel's grave marker. 2 years of scraping and surviving and building something from nothing, ash now. All of it ash. But her children breathed. Her children's hearts beat against her body. Everything else could be rebuilt. Stone's ranch appeared without warning, a massive compound rising from the darkness, lit with lanterns and bustling with men. Barns bigger than Clara's entire homestead. Corrals stretching farther than she could see. And at the center, a house that could only be called a mansion. 3 stories. Stone and timber. Built to last centuries. "Boss!" A bow-legged man came running from the nearest barn. "Jesus Christ, we thought you were—" He stopped short when he saw Clara and the children. "Who's this?" "Survivors." Stone dismounted. "Get the doctor. Doc Morrison's in town." Then send someone to get him. Stone's voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. Now. The man took off running. An older woman appeared on the mansion's porch, steel-gray hairspine straight as a fence post, eyes that missed nothing. Mr. Stone. Her voice carried clear across the yard. What have you done? What needed doing, Martha? Sir, you can't just... Martha's gaze swept over Clara and the children, and something flickered in her expression. Something like fear. Sir, the children, they can't stay in the main house, not after what happened. I know what happened. Then you know why. They're staying. Stone lifted Clara down from the horse with surprising gentleness. Prepare the east rooms. Mr. Stone. That wasn't a request. Silence crackled between them. Martha's face went through a series of expressions Clara couldn't read, settling finally on resignation. Yes, sir. She turned and disappeared into the house. Clara stood in the lamplight, her children pressed around her, staring at the man who'd saved their lives. What happened? She asked quietly. What is she afraid of? Stone's jaw tightened. Nothing you need to worry about. You just rode through fire for my children. I think I deserve... What you deserve is rest. His voice cut like a blade. Tomorrow we'll figure out what comes next. Tonight you sleep. That's all. He turned and walked away. Clara watched him go, this hard man with his scarred face and empty eyes, this stranger who'd risked everything for people he didn't know. Why? The question burned hotter than the fire ever had. What had happened in this house? What secrets lived behind those stone walls? And what had she just brought her children into? Mama! Eli's hand found her elbow. Mama, you okay? Clara looked at her son, at all her children, exhausted and ash-covered and alive. I'm okay, baby. She pulled them close. We're all okay now. But as she followed Martha into the cold stone mansion, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that okay was the last thing they were. The fire had taken everything she owned. What would this place take? The east rooms smelled like dust and grief. Clara noticed it the moment Martha led them inside, a staleness that spoke of doors kept closed too long, of memories locked away instead of aired out. The furniture was good, better than anything she'd ever owned, but it sat beneath a fine layer of neglect. I'll have fresh linens brought up. Martha's voice was clipped efficient. There's water in the basin. I'll send food within the hour. Thank you. Martha paused at the door. For a moment something human flickered behind her hard expression. Your children, they're well behaved. They know how to survive. That's not the same thing. No. Clara met her eyes. It's not. Martha left without another word. Eli was the first to speak. Mama, what is this place? Clara looked around the room, the heavy curtains drawn tight, the empty fireplace, the single candle Martha had lit before departing. Somewhere safe. Safe. Maggie's voice was flat. That woman looked at us like we were ghosts. She was surprised. People don't usually show up in the middle of the night covered in ash. It wasn't surprise. Eli moved to the window, pulling back the curtain just enough to peer out. It was something else. She said something about what happened here, about why we shouldn't stay in the main house. Eli, I'm not a child, Mama. I heard what I heard. Clara wanted to argue, wanted to smooth things over with comfortable lies, the way she had when Samuel's drinking got bad, the way she'd protected them from truths too ugly for young minds. But Eli was right. He wasn't a child anymore. The fire had burned that away too. I don't know what happened here, she said quietly. But the man saved our lives. We owe him enough trust to wait for explanations. And if the explanations don't come, then we'll find them ourselves. Will tugged at her sleeve. His face was pale, exhausted, but his eyes held a question. Mama, where's the man? Mr. Stone. The one who gave Lottie the horse. Will glanced at his sister, already asleep in the room's one bed, with Benny curled beside her. He went into the fire for us, twice. Why'd he do that? Clara didn't have an answer. Get some sleep, baby. All of you. We'll figure things out in the morning. But, morning, I promise. Will crawled onto the bed beside his siblings. Maggie followed after a long look at her mother, a look that said she knew promises weren't always kept. Eli stayed at the window. Mama. Eli, please. Just for tonight. Let it be. Her son's jaw tightened. For a moment, he looked so much like Samuel. The Samuel she'd married, the one who'd fought for what he believed in before the fighting broke him, that Clara's heart cracked. Fine, tonight. He moved toward the bed. But tomorrow, I want answers. You and me both, baby. You and me both. Clara didn't sleep. She sat in the room's only chair, watching her children breathe, counting their heartbeats like rosary beads. 5 of them. 5 lives she'd almost lost. Somewhere in the house a floorboard creaked. Footsteps heavy and slow passing by their door without stopping. Stone. She knew it without knowing how she knew. Something about the weight of those steps, the way they paused just slightly outside her door before continuing on. What kind of man rode through fire for strangers? What kind of man gave a carved horse to a terrified child? What kind of man looked at her the way Stone had looked, like she was something painful to see, something that hurt just by existing? The questions chased themselves through Clara's exhausted mind until dawn painted the windows gray. A knock came with the sunrise. Clara answered to find Martha with a tray of food, bread, butter, cold meat, and what looked like fresh milk. The children need to eat. Martha set the tray on the small table. When they're ready, Mr. Stone would like a word. His study, down the main stairs, end of the hall. Just me. Just you. Clara glanced back at her still sleeping children. I can't leave them. I'll stay with them. I don't... Clara caught herself. Don't know you. Don't trust you. Thank you, but I'd rather wait until they wake. Something shifted in Martha's expression. Not offense, something closer to understanding. You protect them. That's good. She moved past Clara into the room, settling into the chair by the window with the ease of long practice. I'll be here when they wake. You go. Mr. Stone doesn't like waiting. Then Mr. Stone can learn. A sound escaped Martha, might have been a laugh, might have been a cough. First time anyone said that in 6 years. She looked at Clara with new interest. Go on, Mrs. Whitmore. Clara Whitmore. Go on, Mrs. Whitmore. Your children are safe with me. Safer than they'd be most places in this territory. Clara hesitated. Every instinct screamed against leaving her children with a stranger, but those same instincts had trusted Stone enough to climb onto his horse in the middle of an inferno. Sometimes you had to take the leap. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Take the time you need. Won't be a short conversation. The study door was closed. Clara knocked twice, sharp, businesslike. Come. She entered to find Stone behind a massive desk, papers spread before him, an oil lamp still burning despite the daylight now filling the room. He looked up as she entered, and Clara saw what the firelight had hidden. He looked like death. Not the violent kind, the slow kind. The kind that crept in through grief and took up residence. Dark circles beneath those storm-gray eyes, lines carved deep around his mouth. A face that had forgotten how to do anything but endure. Mrs. Whitmore. He didn't stand. Sit. I'll stand. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe. Suit yourself. Silence stretched between them. Clara waited. She'd learned that trick from Samuel back when talking meant risking a drunk man's temper. Wait long enough and the other person always broke first. Stone held out longer than she expected. Nearly a full minute before his jaw tightened. You'll be wanting to know why. Why you saved us. Yes. I saw the fire, heard crying, didn't think about it. You rode into an inferno. Twice. For people you'd never met. Clara stepped closer to the desk. Men don't do that without reason. Some men do. Not in my experience. Stone's eyes met hers. Something dangerous moved in their depths, not threatening exactly but raw. Exposed. Your experience with men must be limited. I was married for 15 years to a drunk who put a bullet in his own head. Clara's voice didn't waver. My experience with men is exactly sufficient. The silence changed quality. Heavier now, weighted with truths neither of them wanted to share. I'm sorry. Stone's voice dropped. For your loss. Don't be. He stopped being a loss long before he died. She watched Stone process that the hard honesty, the refusal to wrap ugliness in pretty lies. He didn't flinch. If anything, something like respect crossed his face. You're direct. I have 5 children and no husband. Can't afford to be otherwise. No. He leaned back in his chair. I don't suppose you can. Clara waited again. This time, Stone broke faster. You want to know what happened here? What Martha was talking about last night? I want to know if my children are safe under your roof. They are. That's not enough. Stone's jaw worked. She could see him fighting something, pride maybe, or pain, or just the habit of keeping secrets locked behind stone walls that matched his name. I had a family once. The words came out rough, dragged from somewhere deep. Wife, daughter. 5 years ago there was sickness, diphtheria, swept through the territory like wildfire. Clara's stomach dropped. She knew this story. Not the specifics, but the shape of it. She'd seen enough graves to recognize where it was heading. I was in Cheyenne when it hit. Business that couldn't wait. Stone's hands curled into fists on the desk. By the time I got back, Abigail was already dying. Rose was already dead. The name hung in the air. Rose. A little girl's name. A name that belonged to laughter and flowers and everything bright in the world. My daughter was 3 years old. Stone's voice had gone flat. Empty. She called for me at the end. Martha told me later. Called for her papa to come save her. And I was 100 miles away worrying about cattle prices. Clara couldn't speak. Words seemed obscene in the face of that kind of grief. I buried them myself. Wouldn't let anyone help. Dug the graves with my own hands because that was all I had left to give them. Stone looked at her, and his eyes were so hollow, Clara felt cold just meeting them. That's what happened here, Mrs. Whitmore. That's why Martha didn't want children in this house, because every child's laugh is a reminder of the one I couldn't save. Silence. Clara thought about her own children, Eli, trying so hard to be a man. Maggie with her 2 old eyes. Will's endless questions, Lottie's fragile trust, Benny's quiet watching. Thought about losing any one of them, let alone all of them. Thought about how it would feel to dig their graves. I'm sorry. Her voice came out hoarse. I can't imagine. No, you can't. Stone stood abruptly, moving to the window, his back to her, now shoulders rigid. That's why you should leave. As soon as you're able. I'll give you money enough to start over somewhere. Anywhere. But you shouldn't stay here. Why? Because I don't. He stopped. Started again. Because every time I look at your children, I see the one I lost. And every time I see her, I want to... His voice broke. Clara moved without thinking, crossed the space between them, and put her hand on his arm. She felt him flinch at the contact, felt the muscles beneath her palm go rigid. Want to what? Stone didn't turn around. Want to protect them. The way I couldn't protect her. Clara's hand stayed on his arm. She could feel his pulse through the fabric of his shirt, too fast, too hard, the heartbeat of a man fighting a battle he'd already lost. Is that so bad, wanting to protect children who need protecting? It is when I can't. He turned then, and his face was raw, stripped of every defense. When I can't do it without breaking apart. When caring means risking everything again, and I've got nothing left to risk. Then don't care. Clara held his gaze. Just let us stay. We don't need you to care. We need a roof and time to heal, and a chance to figure out what comes next. That's all. And if something happens to them, then it happens, and we deal with it. That's what survival is, Mr. Stone. Dealing with the things that happen. Stone stared at her like she was speaking a language he'd forgotten. You're not afraid. I'm terrified every second of every day, but I've got 5 children who need me to keep moving anyway. Fear's a luxury I can't afford. Something shifted in Stone's expression. The walls didn't come down. Clara wasn't sure they ever would. But a crack appeared. Small. Almost invisible. But there. 1 month. His voice had steadied. You can stay 1 month. That should be enough time to figure out your situation, make plans. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. He moved back toward his desk, putting distance between them. This territory isn't kind to widows. There are men who will see your land, your children, and think they can take what they want. I don't have any land. Not anymore. You have water rights. Copper Creek runs through your property. The fire didn't change that. Stone shuffled through the papers on his desk, pulling out a map. Right here. See, your husband's claim included riparian access. That's worth more than the land itself out here. Clara moved closer, studying the map. She'd never seen her homestead from this angle, a tiny square marked Whitmore next to a meandering blue line. I didn't know. Most people don't, but there's a man named Silas Crane who does. Stone's finger moved to a larger square marked Crane. He owns the second biggest spread in the territory. Been trying to corner the eastern water supply for years. Your husband's claim was the last piece he didn't control. Samuel never mentioned... Did your husband mention much of anything toward the end? The question was blunt, almost cruel, but Clara couldn't argue with it. No, he didn't. Crane's been waiting for your claim to lapse, waiting for you to give up, or die, or disappear. Stone's eyes met hers. The fire might have done him a favor. Burned you out, left you with nothing. Easy to claim abandonment now. I didn't abandon anything. I ran from a wildfire. I know, and you can fight it. But fighting takes money lawyers' time. Things you don't have. Clara's mind raced. She'd been so focused on surviving the night she hadn't thought about what came after. The land, the water, the legal tangles Samuel had left behind. Why are you telling me this? Because Crane's going to come for you. Probably sooner rather than later. Stone rolled up the map. And when he does, you need to know what you're dealing with. You know him. Everyone in this territory knows Silas Crane, knows what he's capable of. And what's that? Stone's jaw tightened. He had a wife once, too. She ran off with a ranch hand 3 years into their marriage. The ranch hand was found 2 weeks later at the bottom of a ravine. The wife was never found at all. Clara's blood went cold. You think he killed her? I think men like Crane don't let go of what they consider theirs, and right now he considers your water rights his. Stone's voice dropped. He'll come calling Mrs. Whitmore. Might be polite at first, might offer to help buy you out cheap, solve your problems, but if you refuse him, he'll stop being polite. Men like Crane don't know any other way. Clara thought about her children upstairs, about the refuge she'd thought she'd found. Why does it matter to you what Crane does to me? Stone was quiet for a long moment. Because you survived fire. Because your children looked at me like I was something worth trusting. His voice roughened. Because I couldn't save Rose, but maybe... He stopped himself, shook his head. Maybe what? Nothing. Forget it. Mr. Stone. Caleb. The name came out like it surprised him. Just Caleb. If you're going to be here a month, you might as well. Caleb. Clara tested the name. It felt strange on her tongue. too intimate for a man she'd known less than 12 hours. "Then call me Clara." Something shifted in his expression. The crack in his walls widened just slightly. "Clara." He said it carefully, like he was handling something fragile. "Go back to your children. Eat, rest. We'll talk more tonight about what comes next." She nodded and turned toward the door. "Clara." She paused. "The wooden horse. The one I gave your daughter." Caleb's voice had gone rough again. "I made it for Rose, the night before she got sick. Never got to give it to her." Clara's throat closed. "Caleb." Your girl looked at it like it was magic, like it meant something. He wasn't looking at her anymore. His eyes were fixed on something she couldn't see. Rose would have wanted it to make someone happy. That's all. Clara left without speaking. There were no words for what he'd just given her. No way to acknowledge the weight of a dead girl's toy passed to a living one. She made it halfway down the hall before the tears came. The children were awake when she returned. Will had already eaten half the breadcrumbs scattered across the bed. Maggie was attempting to braid Lottie's hair while Benny watched with solemn fascination. Eli stood by the window, arms crossed, face unreadable. "Mama." Will bounced off the bed. "That lady Martha. She says there's horses. Real horses. Can I see them?" "After breakfast." "I already ate breakfast." "After everyone eats breakfast." Will groaned but subsided. Maggie caught Clara's eye, a question in her expression. Later Clara mouthed. Maggie nodded. Martha rose from her chair. "I'll leave you to settle in. Mr. Stone wants the children to have free run of the property except the north wing. That's private." "The north wing?" Something flickered across Martha's face. Pain quickly hidden. "Private," she repeated. "Best leave it at that." She left before Clara could ask more. Eli waited exactly 3 seconds after the door closed. "What did he say?" Clara sat on the edge of the bed, pulling Benny onto her lap. Her youngest grabbed a fistful of her hair and tugged. "He said we can stay. 1 month. And after that, we figure it out." "That's not a plan." "No, it's not." Clara met her son's eyes. "But it's what we have, Eli. A roof over our heads, food in our bellies, and time. That's more than we had 12 hours ago." "Mama." Maggie's voice was careful. "You've been crying." Clara touched her face. The tears had dried, but she could feel the tracks they'd left. "Mr. Stone Caleb told me about his family. He lost them. Wife and daughter. 5 years ago." Silence fell over the room. Even Will stopped fidgeting. "That's why the lady didn't want us here," Lottie said quietly. She was clutching the wooden horse, stroking its carved mane. "Because we remind him of his little girl." "Yes, baby. That's why." Lottie looked at the horse for a long moment. She must have been nice. His little girl. If he made her a horse this pretty. Clara's heart cracked all over again. "I think she was sweetheart. I think she was the nicest little girl in the whole territory. Like me. Just like you." Lottie smiled, the first real smile Clara had seen since the fire. She tucked the horse against her chest like something precious. "I'll take good care of it. So, she knows it went to a good home." Clara pulled her daughter close and held on tight. The days that followed settled into something resembling routine. Will found his way to the stables within hours, trailing after a grizzled old man named Jacob, who managed Stone's horses. The old man had a patient way about him, answering Will's endless questions without irritation, letting the boy brush manes and carry water buckets. Maggie discovered the library. Stone had books, hundreds of them, lining the walls of a room off the main hall. Clara found her daughter curled in a chair 3 days in, completely lost in a novel thicker than her arm. "I didn't ask permission," Maggie admitted without looking up. "But they were just sitting here, getting dusty. I don't think he'll mind." They were hers. Maggie finally raised her eyes. Mrs. Stone's. Some of them have her name written inside. Abigail Stone. Pretty handwriting. Clara touched her daughter's hair. Are you okay reading them? Knowing that... Maggie considered. She loved books. I love books. Seems like the right way to remember someone. 11 years old and already wiser than most adults. Clara kissed her forehead and left her to read. Eli was harder. Her son spent most of his time walking the property boundaries, studying the lay of the land like he was planning something. When Clara asked, he shrugged. Just looking? Looking for what? Weak points. Places someone could get in without being seen. Clara's stomach tightened. Eli. That man you talked to, Stone. He's worried about something. I can see it in how his men act. They're watching the roads, standing guard in shifts. Eli met her eyes. What's coming, Mama? She couldn't lie to him, not anymore. There's a man, Silas Crane. He wants our land, our water rights. We don't have any land. It burned. The land can be reclaimed, and the water apparently that's what matters out here. Worth more than gold, Caleb said. Eli's expression sharpened. Caleb first name's already. He asked me to call him that. Interesting. Don't. Don't what? Whatever you're thinking, don't. Eli almost smiled. Almost. I'm not thinking anything. Just noticing that a man who saved our lives gave us shelter and asked you to call him by his Christian name might have intentions beyond charity. Eli Whitmore. I'm not saying it's bad, just saying I'm watching. The almost smile faded. Someone has to. He walked away before she could respond. Lottie healed in her own quiet way. She followed Martha around the kitchen, helping with small tasks, stirring pots, sorting beans, things that made her feel useful without requiring words. Martha, to Clara's surprise, showed unexpected patience with the silent child. She'll talk when she's ready, Martha said one afternoon when Clara asked. Some folks need noise to heal. Some need quiet. Your girl's a quiet one. She wasn't always. Fire changes people. Changes children most of all. Martha's hands never stopped moving, kneading bread-shaping loaves, working the dough with practiced rhythm. But it doesn't have to change them for the worse. Just have to give them time. And Benny did what 2-year-olds do. He explored. He grabbed. He put things in his mouth that shouldn't go there. He learned that Martha kept biscuits in a jar he could reach if he climbed just right. He also learned that if he toddled toward Caleb Stone, the man would freeze like a deer scenting a wolf. Clara noticed it the first time it happened. Benny escaping her grip and making his unsteady way toward where Stone stood, talking with one of his men. Stone saw the baby coming and went absolutely still. His face drained of color. His hands curled into fists. Benny? Clara scooped him up before he could reach Stone. I'm sorry. He's fast for his age. Stone didn't speak for a long moment. When he did, his voice was raw. He has gray eyes. Yes, like his father. Rose had gray eyes too. Clara didn't know what to say. Stone turned and walked away before she had to figure it out. That night, a knock came at their door. Clara opened it to find Tom Stone's 16-year-old ward, all red hair and freckles and nervous energy. Mr. Stone sent me to fetch Eli. Says if your boy wants to learn how to handle horses proper, I'm to teach him. Clara glanced at Eli, who was trying very hard to look uninterested and failing completely. That's up to Eli. Her son shrugged with studied casualness. Might as well. Got nothing better to do. Tom grinned. Great. Stables. Dawn tomorrow. Don't be late. Old Jacob gets ornery when people waste daylight. I won't be late. Good. Oh, and... Tom hesitated. Mr. Stone wanted me to tell you something, Mrs. Whitmore. What's that? He said to tell you that Silas Crane's been asking around town. Asking about you. About where you went after the fire. Tom's freckled face was serious now. He said you should know that Crane knows you're here. Clara's blood went cold. Thank you, Tom. Tell Mr. Stone I appreciate the warning. Tom nodded and disappeared into the darkness. Clara closed the door and leaned against it, heart pounding. He knows we're here. She'd hoped for more time. More days of pretending the world outside didn't exist, that she and her children had somehow escaped the ugliness of men who wanted what wasn't theirs. But the world always caught up. The fire had taught her that. The fire and Samuel and every hard lesson she'd learned since she was old enough to understand that life didn't care about fairness. Mama. Maggie's voice came from the bed, tight with fear she was trying to hide. Who's Silas Crane? Clara looked at her children. Eli standing guard by the window. Maggie clutching her borrowed book like a shield. Will pressed against Lottie, both of them watching with wide eyes. Benny asleep in the center of the bed, oblivious to everything. 5 children, her whole world. He's trouble, she said quietly. But we've survived trouble before. What if we can't survive this? Clara crossed the room and sat on the bed, gathering her children close, the way she had when the fire was bearing down, when death seemed certain, when hope was nothing but a stranger on horseback riding through hell. Then we go down fighting, she said, together, the way Whitmores always have. She didn't sleep that night either. This time, when the heavy footsteps paused outside her door, they didn't continue on. They stopped. Clara held her breath, waited, counted heartbeats in the darkness. A piece of paper slid under the door. She rose silently, picked it up, moved to the window where moonlight could illuminate the words, written in a strong, slanted hand. Crane sent men to your property today. They've filed a claim of abandonment with the territorial office. I have a lawyer coming from Cheyenne. We'll fight this. Below that, 2 more words, I promise. Clara read the note 3 times. Then she folded it carefully and tucked it into her bodice close to her heart. Caleb Stone had made a promise. And something in her gut, the same instinct that had trusted him in the fire, trusted his word when he said he'd come back for her children, told her he would keep it. She just hoped keeping it wouldn't cost him everything he had left. The lawyer arrived 3 days later. Clara watched from the kitchen window as a woman in a dark traveling suit stepped down from a dusty carriage. Not a man, a woman. Sharp-eyed, straight-backed, carrying a leather satchel like it contained weapons instead of papers. That's Catherine Wells. Martha appeared at Clara's elbow. Best legal mind west of the Mississippi, also the most expensive. A woman lawyer. Ain't many of them, but the ones that exist tend to be twice as good as any man. Martha's voice held something close to respect. She's never lost a land case. Clara watched Catherine Wells stride toward the house like she owned it. How does Caleb know her? She handled his water rights dispute 8 years back. Some rancher tried to dam Copper Creek upstream, cut off the flow to Stoneland. Martha's lips twitched. Man ended up selling his entire spread for pennies on the dollar. Moved to California. Never came back. And Catherine Wells did that. With paper and ink. Didn't fire a single shot. Clara turned that over in her mind. Paper and ink against men like Silas Crane. It seemed impossible. But then again, so had surviving the fire. The meeting took place in Caleb's study. Clara sat across from Catherine Wells, intensely aware of her own worn dress. Her work-roughened hands, the ash still embedded under her fingernails, no matter how hard she scrubbed. Catherine looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion plate, every hair in place, every button polished. But her eyes weren't unkind. Mrs. Whitmore. Catherine's voice was crisp, businesslike. I've reviewed your husband's original claim filing. The good news is his paperwork was meticulous. Whatever else Samuel Whitmore may have been, he understood property law. Clara's throat tightened. Whatever else he may have been, even strangers knew about Samuel's drinking. And the bad news, Silas Crane has money influence and patience. He's been building toward this for years. Catherine spread papers across Caleb's desk. He's filed 3 separate motions, abandonment, failure to maintain improvements. And here's the clever one: spousal incapacity. What does that mean? It means he's claiming that as a woman alone, you're legally incapable of holding the claim, that it should revert to the territory for redistribution. Clara's hands curled into fists. I've been working that land for 2 years, alone, while raising 5 children. I know, and we'll prove it. Catherine's pen tapped against the papers. But you need to understand what we're fighting. Crane's not just after your 60 acres. He's after the water, control Copper Creek, and he controls every ranch downstream, including Stone Creek. Caleb spoke for the first time. He'd been standing by the window silent, watching. That's the real play. Cut off my water supply and I'm done. Clara turned to look at him. You didn't tell me that. Didn't seem relevant. Didn't seem... Clara's voice rose before she could stop it. You're telling me this isn't just about my land, that Crane is using me to get to you. He's using you because you're vulnerable. Getting to me is a bonus. Caleb's jaw tightened. I'd have fought for your claim regardless. Would you? The question hung in the air. Catherine Wells looked between them with sharp interest. Yes. Caleb's voice was flat, final. I would. Clara wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that his help came from something other than self-interest. But she'd trusted Samuel too once, trusted that his promises meant something. What do we do? She forced her attention back to Catherine. How do we fight this? First, we establish continuous residence. You need to return to your property within the week and document that you're maintaining it. There's nothing left to maintain. The fire? Doesn't matter. Plant a stake. Put up a tent. Show the territorial office that you haven't abandoned your claim. Catherine's pen moved across paper, making notes. Second, we file counter-motions challenging every one of Crane's claims. That buys time. And third... Catherine paused. Her eyes met Clara's with something that might have been sympathy. Third, you prepare for the possibility that the law won't be enough. Men like Crane don't play by rules. When legal means fail, they find other ways. She's not going back there alone. Caleb's voice cut across the room. It's not safe. I didn't say alone. Catherine gathered her papers. I said she needs to go back. How she does it is your concern, not mine. She left Clara and Caleb in silence. Clara broke it first. I won't hide here while someone else fights my battles. It's not hiding. It's strategy. It's cowardice. She stood suddenly, unable to sit still. That land is mine, my children's. Samuel may have been a drunk and a failure, but he died on that property. The least I can do is fight for it. And if fighting for it gets you killed, then my children will know their mother didn't give up. Caleb moved toward her. His expression was impossible to read, anger maybe, or something close to admiration. You're stubborn. I'm a mother, same thing. For a moment, something cracked in his stone face, almost a smile. Fine. We go together, tomorrow morning. I'll bring men. I don't need an army. You need someone watching your back while you plant stakes and make your presence known. He stopped in front of her close enough that she could see the flecks of darker gray in his eyes. Let me do this, Clara. Let me help. She should refuse. Should insist on handling it herself the way she'd handled everything since Samuel stopped being useful. But something in Caleb's voice, not pity, not charity, just simple need, made her pause. He needed to help. Needed to protect something, someone, the way he couldn't protect his wife and daughter. Maybe letting him wasn't weakness. Maybe it was grace. Tomorrow morning, she agreed. But I'm bringing Eli. Your son. He's 14, old enough to learn what fighting for land looks like. Clara met his eyes. And old enough to start being part of the decisions that affect his family. Caleb studied her for a long moment. You're a good mother. I'm trying to be. Same thing. He walked away before she could respond, left her standing in his study with her heart doing strange things in her chest and her mind full of questions she didn't want to answer. They rode out at dawn. Clara sat her borrowed horse with more confidence than she felt. 2 years on the homestead had made her a passable rider, but she was no expert. Eli rode beside her on the chestnut mare Tom had been teaching him to handle. Behind them, Caleb and 6 of his men formed a loose guard. Expecting trouble, Eli asked quietly. Expecting nothing. Prepared for everything. Clara adjusted her grip on the reins. That's how you survive out here. Is that what Papa taught you? The question caught her off guard. Eli rarely mentioned Samuel anymore. None of the children did. Your papa taught me a lot of things. Clara chose her words carefully. Some worth keeping, some worth forgetting. Which one is this? Surviving. She looked at her son, really looked. Saw the man emerging from the boy, the strength taking shape beneath the softness. That's something I taught myself. Eli nodded slowly. Me too. They rode on. The homestead was worse than Clara remembered. Not just burned, gutted. The cabin's 4 walls had collapsed inward, leaving nothing but a blackened skeleton of what had been. The garden she'd worked so hard to cultivate was ash. The chicken coop, the woodshed, the privy Samuel had built the first summer, all gone. But the well still stood. And Copper Creek still ran through the northern edge of her property, glinting silver in the morning light. Ma'am. One of Caleb's men approached, his face grim. Someone's been here. Recent. Horse tracks leading from the main road to the creek bed. Clara's stomach tightened. Crane's men. Likely. They've been marking territory. Look. He pointed to a stake driven into the ground near the property line, fresh wood, the dirt around it still loose. That wasn't there before the fire. Caleb dismounted and crossed to examine the stake. His expression darkened. They're claiming the water access point, trying to establish presence before you could. He yanked the stake from the ground and threw it aside. We need to work fast. The next 3 hours were hard labor. Clara and Eli worked alongside Caleb's men, clearing debris, marking boundaries, planting stakes of their own. Clara's hands blistered. Her back screamed. But she didn't stop, didn't slow, didn't let herself think about anything except the next post, the next hole, the next proof of ownership. Mrs. Whitmore. Clara straightened at the unfamiliar voice. A rider was approaching from the main road, well-dressed, mounted on a horse that probably cost more than her entire homestead had been worth. Behind him rode 6 more men. Armed. That's Victor Crane. Caleb appeared at her elbow, his hand resting on his gun. Silas's son. Don't say anything. Let me handle it. This is my land. And those are men who'd as soon shoot you as talk to you. Let me handle it. Victor Crane pulled up 20 feet away. He was handsome in a cruel sort of way, fine features twisted by something ugly underneath. His eyes swept over Clara with an interest that made her skin crawl. Well, well. His voice was smooth, amused. The widow Whitmore. We were wondering when you'd show your face. She's showing it now. Caleb stepped forward, putting himself between Clara and Victor. On her own property, which you're currently trespassing on. Trespassing? Victor's smile widened. Last I heard, this land was under dispute. Up for grabs, you might say. Last you heard wrong. Mrs. Whitmore's claim is filed and valid. Your father's motions are being challenged as we speak. Challenged by Catherine Wells. Victor laughed. We know. My father's lawyers are looking forward to the entertainment. Your father's lawyers are going to be very busy losing. Caleb's voice hadn't changed, still flat, still calm. But Clara could see the tension in his shoulders, the readiness in his stance. Now get off this property before I have you removed. Big words from a man protecting another man's widow. Victor's eyes found Clara again. Tell me, Mrs. Whitmore, does he warm your bed too? Or is that extra? Clara's face burned. Eli made a sound like a growl and started forward. Clara grabbed his arm. Don't. Mama, he can't. He wants you to react. Don't give him what he wants." Victor watched this exchange with obvious pleasure. Smart woman. Though not smart enough to accept my father's generous offer. He was willing to pay fair value for this land, you know, before you insulted him by refusing. I didn't refuse anything. I was never asked. Weren't you? Victor's expression shifted, still smiling, but something dangerous underneath. 3 months ago. My father came to call. Made his intentions perfectly clear. Clara's memory stirred. A man at her door. Expensive clothes, soft hands, eyes that looked at her children like they were obstacles to be cleared. He offered to buy Samuel's debt. And your hand in marriage. A package deal, he called it. Clara's stomach turned. I told him I wasn't interested. You told him to leave and never come back. Victor's smile vanished. My father doesn't forget insults, Mrs. Whitmore, and he doesn't forgive them. Then your father can take his grievances to hell. Clara's voice came out stronger than she felt. I didn't want him 3 months ago. I don't want him now. And I certainly don't want his son standing on my land making threats. Threats? Victor spread his hands innocently. I haven't made any threats. Just having a friendly conversation. Conversation's over. Caleb stepped forward again. Leave, now. Victor held his ground for a long moment. His eyes moved between Clara and Caleb, calculating. You know, he said slowly, my father was content to let the lawyers handle this. Legal and proper the way civilized men do things. But I'm beginning to think lawyers are too slow. His gaze locked onto Clara. Maybe a more direct approach is needed. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Victor gathered his reins. Enjoy your property while you can, Mrs. Whitmore. I don't think you'll have it much longer. He turned his horse and rode away, his men following. Clara watched until they disappeared over the ridge, her heart pounding. Mama. Eli's voice was tight. That man? I know. He's dangerous. I know. What are we going to do? Clara looked at her son, looked at the burned ruins of her homestead, looked at Caleb Stone, who stood watching her with something unreadable in his storm-gray eyes. We're going to fight, she said, the way Whitmores always have. The ride back to Stone Creek was silent. Clara's mind churned with everything Victor had said, everything he'd implied. The memory of Silas Crane's visit 3 months ago returned with new clarity, his offer of marriage disguised as charity, his thinly veiled suggestions about what happened to women alone in the territory. She'd thought refusing him ended it. How wrong she'd been. Clara. Caleb pulled his horse alongside hers. You're shaking. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're scared, and you should be. His voice dropped. Victor Crane is worse than his father. Silas is cold, calculating. He'll use the law until it stops working, then find other ways. But Victor... Caleb shook his head. Victor likes hurting people, likes watching them break. You're not making me feel better. I'm not trying to. I'm trying to make you understand what we're dealing with. I understand. Clara gripped her reins until her knuckles went white. Believe me, I understand. Then you understand why I want you and your children to stay close. No trips to town alone. No wandering off the property. Victor made a promise today, and he's the kind of man who keeps his promises. Clara wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could handle herself, didn't need protecting, wasn't some fragile flower waiting to be crushed. But she thought of Lottie's face when she'd clung to her leg in the fire. Thought of Benny's trusting eyes. Thought of Eli trying to be a man at 14 because someone had to be. Fine, she said quietly. We stay close. Something in Caleb's expression eased. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm not doing it for you. I know. His voice gentled. You're doing it for them. That's what makes you worth protecting. Clara didn't have an answer for that. They rode the rest of the way in silence. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She sat by the window of her borrowed room watching moonlight paint the compound silver. Her children slept peacefully. Lottie curled around the wooden horse, Benny sprawled across the pillow, Will's arm thrown over Maggie's shoulders. Eli had his own pallet now close to the door. Protecting. Always protecting. A soft knock broke the silence. Clara rose quietly and opened the door to find Martha fully dressed despite the late hour. "You should come downstairs." Martha's voice was low. "Mr. Stone is in the study. He asked for you." "At this hour?" "He doesn't sleep much. Never has since." Martha stopped herself. "Just come." Clara glanced at her sleeping children, then followed Martha down the dark hallway. Caleb was standing by the fire when she entered his study. A glass of whiskey sat untouched on his desk. The flames cast shadows across his face, making the scar stand out stark and silver. "You should be sleeping," he said without turning around. "So should you." "I don't sleep. Not anymore." He finally looked at her. "Nightmares. Every time I close my eyes I see them. Abigail, Rose. The way they must have looked at the end, wondering why I wasn't there." Clara moved into the room, closing the door behind her. "Is that why you asked me here to talk about nightmares?" "I asked you here because I owe you the truth." Caleb picked up the whiskey glass, stared at it, set it down again. "About why I really saved you. You said you heard crying, didn't think about it." "That's what I told myself, what I wanted to believe." He turned to face her fully. "The truth is, I saw your cabin burning, and I knew in my gut that there were children inside. Don't ask me how. I just knew. And I thought..." His voice cracked. "I thought maybe this time I could make it different. Maybe this time I could save them. Maybe if I rode fast enough, fought hard enough, I could outrun what happened to Rose." Clara's chest tightened. "Caleb, I didn't ride into that fire for you, Clara. I rode into it for my daughter, for the chance to do what I couldn't do 5 years ago." He laughed, a hollow, broken sound. "That's the truth. That's what kind of man I am. Selfish even in salvation." Clara crossed the space between them. She didn't think about it, didn't plan it, just moved. Her hand found his face, the scarred cheek rough beneath her palm. "You saved 5 children who would have died without you. You gave a grieving little girl a wooden horse made for the daughter you lost. You're fighting to protect a woman and her family from men who want to destroy them." Her voice was steady. "I don't care why you did it. I care that you did it." Caleb's hand came up to cover hers. His eyes were wet. She'd never seen him close to tears before. "I don't know how to do this," he whispered. "How to care about people again. How to let them in without being terrified of losing them." "Yes." Clara thought about Samuel, about the slow destruction of a man who'd once promised her everything, about learning to stop loving someone while they were still alive, still breathing, still breaking your heart one day at a time. "I don't know either," she admitted. "But I know that being alone is worse. Being safe is worse. Whatever comes next, whatever Crane does, whatever the law decides, I'd rather face it with someone than without. Even someone as broken as me. Especially someone as broken as you." Clara's thumb traced the line of his scar. "Because broken people understand what it costs to keep going." Caleb leaned into her touch, just slightly, just enough. "Clara." Her name in his mouth sounded like a prayer. "I can't promise you anything. Can't promise I'll be what you need. Can't promise..." "I'm not asking for promises." She stepped closer. "I'm asking for today. Just today. Can you give me that?" He was quiet for a long moment. The fire crackled. Somewhere outside, a horse whinnied. "I can try," he said finally. "I can try." It wasn't a declaration, wasn't a vow, was barely a beginning. But Clara had learned to build on barely, had spent 2 years making something from nothing. "That's enough," she said. "For now, that's enough." She left him standing by the fire, his hand raised like he was reaching for something he couldn't quite touch. Walked back through the dark house to her borrowed room, her borrowed life, her uncertain future. But for the first time since the fire, she didn't feel alone. And maybe that was the beginning of something. Maybe that was enough. The sound of gunfire woke her at dawn. Clara was on her feet before the echo faded, grabbing for the rifle Sam had taught her to use. Her children jolted awake around her, Maggie clutching Will Eli, already reaching for his boots, Lottie crying, Benny screaming. "Stay here," Clara's voice was sharp. "All of you, don't move." "Mama," Eli started. "Don't move." She ran. The compound was chaos. Men shouting, horses screaming, the smell of gunpowder thick in the morning air. Clara burst through the kitchen door to find Martha pressed against the wall, face white. "What's happening?" "Raiders. Came from the East Road. Hit the horse barn first." Clara's blood went cold. Will's horse barn, where old Jacob slept. She ran again. The barn was burning. Not fully engulfed, not yet, but flames licked up one wall fed by hay and dry wood. Men formed a bucket line from the well, desperately trying to slow the spread. And in the middle of it all stood Caleb Stone, rifle in hand, blood running from a gash on his forehead. "Caleb!" He spun at her voice. Something like relief crossed his face before the hard mask slammed back down. "Get inside. It's not safe." "Who did this?" "Who do you think?" Caleb fired into the darkness beyond the compound. An answering shot whined past Clara's ear. "Crane's men. Victor's keeping his promise." Clara's hands shook. This was her fault. Her land, her water rights, her refusal to submit to a cruel man's demands. Her fault that Stone Creek was burning. "Clara!" Caleb grabbed her arm, pulled her behind a water trough. "Listen to me. Get your children. Take them to the root cellar under the kitchen. Martha knows where." "What about you?" "I'll handle this." "Caleb, go." He shoved her toward the house. "Protect your children. That's your job. Let me do mine." She wanted to argue, wanted to stay to fight to prove she wasn't the helpless widow everyone expected her to be. But she thought of Lottie's tears, Benny's screams, Eli's desperate attempts to be brave. Her children needed her. She ran. The root cellar was cold and dark, and smelled like potatoes and fear. Clara huddled with her 5 children in the blackness, listening to gunfire and shouting above. Lottie had stopped crying, had gone terrifyingly silent, her face pressed against Clara's chest. Will trembled between Maggie and Eli. Benny slept somehow exhausted beyond what his small body could process. "Mama," Eli's voice was barely a whisper. "How long do we wait?" "Until someone comes for us." "What if no one comes?" Clara pulled him closer. "Then we wait longer." Hours passed, or maybe minutes. In the darkness, time lost all meaning. Finally, footsteps above. The scrape of the rug being moved, the trapdoor lifting. "Clara!" Caleb's voice rough and tired. "It's over. You can come up." She climbed the stairs on shaking legs, her children following close behind. The kitchen was filled with gray morning light and the smell of smoke that wasn't just from the stove. Caleb stood by the door, his shirt torn, his face streaked with soot and blood. But he was standing. He was alive. "The barn?" Clara asked. "We saved most of it. Lost the hay stores. Lost 3 horses." His jaw tightened. "Old Jacob took a bullet. Doc's with him now." Will made a strangled sound. "Old Jacob. But he was teaching me he'll live." Caleb crouched down to Will's level. "He's tough. Tougher than any bullet. He'll be back to bossing you around in no time." Will nodded, but tears were streaming down his face. Clara pulled him close. "Was anyone else hurt?" "2 of my men have minor wounds. Nothing serious." Caleb stood, his eyes finding Clara's. "They weren't trying to kill, just scare. Send a message." What message? That nowhere is safe. That I can't protect you. His voice hardened. That they can hit us whenever they want, and we can't stop them. Clara looked around the kitchen. At Martha's white face. At her children's terrified eyes. At Caleb bloody and exhausted still standing, because standing was all he knew how to do. Then we send a message back, she said. Clara. No. I'm done hiding. Done waiting for them to come to us. She stepped toward him, her fear transforming into something harder, sharper. You said men like Crane don't play by rules. Fine. Then we stop playing by rules too. What are you suggesting? Clara thought about Victor's smug smile, about Silas's cold eyes, about men who thought they could take whatever they wanted from whoever was too weak to stop them. I'm suggesting we stop being weak. Caleb studied her for a long moment. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise giving way to respect, giving way to something else entirely. All right, he said finally. Let's stop being weak. And in that moment, standing in a smoke-filled kitchen, with her children pressed around her, and a broken man watching her like she was something miraculous, Clara felt the last of her fear burn away. They'd come for her. They'd come for her family. They'd tried to destroy everything she'd built, everyone she loved. They'd failed. And they would keep failing. Because Clara Jane Whitmore hadn't survived fire and loss and Samuel's destruction just to be broken by men with more money than morals. She was done surviving. Now she was going to fight. The plan came together over the next 3 days. Clara sat at Caleb's desk, Catherine Wells's papers spread before her, learning the shape of warfare waged with ink instead of bullets. Water rights. Territorial claims. Survey maps that showed exactly where Silas Crane had bent the law to breaking. Here, Catherine pointed to a line on the oldest map. Crane's been running irrigation pipes through land he doesn't own, has been for years. The original survey clearly marks this section as open range. How did no one notice? Because he paid the surveyor to lose the original documents. Lucky for us, the territorial office keeps copies. Catherine's smile was sharp as a blade. We file this tomorrow. It won't win us the war, but it'll get his attention. And when we have his attention, we offer him a choice. Back off your claim or face criminal charges for water theft bribery, and if we can prove it, the raid on Stone Creek. Clara studied the maps, lines and boundaries and legal language that meant nothing to her 2 months ago. Now they meant everything. Will it work? Depends on how much Crane values his reputation. Catherine gathered her papers. Men like him care about power. If we can make him look weak, make the territory see him as something other than untouchable, he might decide your 60 acres aren't worth the fight. And if he doesn't? Catherine's expression hardened. Then we're in for a longer war than any of us want. After Catherine left, Clara found Caleb in the barn, helping repair the damage from the raid. His shirt was soaked with sweat, his arms streaked with soot and sawdust. He looked up as she approached. News. Catherine thinks she can hurt him. Legally. Make him back off. You don't sound convinced. Clara leaned against a post watching him work. The rhythm of his hammer steady and sure. The way his shoulders moved beneath the damp fabric. The strength in his scarred hands. I'm convinced she can try. Whether it's enough? She shook her head. Men like Crane don't scare easy. Victor made that clear. No, they don't. Caleb set down his hammer and crossed to her. Which is why we need a backup plan. Such as making sure Crane knows what happens if he comes at us again. Caleb's jaw tightened. I've got friends. People who owe me. Men who've been waiting for a reason to push back against Crane's hold on this territory. You want to start a war. I want to end one. Before it gets worse. Clara thought about the raid. About old Jacob lying in bed with a bullet hole in his shoulder. About Lottie's nightmares returning worse than before. about the fear that had crept back into her children's eyes just when she'd thought they were starting to heal. What would it cost? Money, favors, maybe some blood. Caleb held her gaze. But less blood than if we wait for Crane to decide he's done playing games. Clara wanted to argue, wanted to believe that courts and lawyers could solve this, that civilization had some meaning, even out here on the edge of nothing. But she'd seen Victor's eyes, heard his promise, felt the truth of it in her bones. "Do it," she said. "Whatever you need to do. Just what? Just don't die." Her voice cracked. "I've buried one man already. I don't want to bury another." Something shifted in Caleb's expression. The hardness softened, just for a moment. "I don't plan on dying." Samuel didn't plan on it either. Samuel gave up. Caleb stepped closer. "I don't give up. Not anymore. Not with something worth fighting for." Clara's breath caught. "Caleb." "Mama." Will's voice shattered the moment. Clara spun to see her son running toward the barn, his face flushed with excitement. "Mama, old Jacob's awake. He's asking for me." Clara looked at Caleb. He nodded. "Go. We'll talk later." She went. Old Jacob was sitting up in bed when Clara and Will arrived, his shoulder heavily bandaged, but his eyes clear and sharp. The old man's face creased into a smile when he saw Will. "There's my assistant. Thought you'd forgotten about me." Will practically launched himself at the bed. Clara caught him just in time. "Careful. He's hurt." "I ain't made of glass, Mrs. Whitmore." Jacob's voice was weaker than usual, but steady. "Boy can give me a proper greeting." Will hugged him gently, his face buried in the old man's good shoulder. "I was scared," Will mumbled. "I heard you got shot, and I thought, takes more than a bullet to put down an old fool like me." Jacob's weathered hand came up to pat Will's back. "Been shot before. Reckon I'll be shot again. Part of living in this territory." Clara watched her son cling to this man, this stranger, who'd become something like family in just a few weeks. Will had lost his father to whiskey and despair. Now he'd found something else. Someone who taught him about horses and patience and the satisfaction of work well done. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for being kind to him." Jacob's eyes met hers over Will's head. "Boy's got a gift. Horses know it. I know it." His expression grew serious. "You keep him close, Mrs. Whitmore. Territory's about to get rougher. Boys like him, boys with gentle hearts, they're the ones that break easiest." "I'll keep him close. See that you do." That night, Clara gathered her children in their room. They sat in a circle on the bed, Eli cross-legged with Benny in his lap, Maggie hugging her knees. Will still sniffling from the emotion of seeing Jacob Lottie clutching her wooden horse like a talisman. "I need to tell you something," Clara said. "Something important." "Is it about the bad men?" Lottie's voice was small. "The ones who came to hurt us." "Yes, baby. It's about them." Clara took a breath. She'd thought about how to say this, how to explain to children what she barely understood herself. But there was no gentle way to deliver hard truth. "There's a man named Silas Crane. He wants our land, our water, and he's willing to hurt people to get it." "Why?" Will asked. "Why does he want our stuff?" "Because it's worth money, and because I told him no when he wanted to marry me." Eli's head snapped up. "He wanted to marry you. He wanted to own me. That's different." Clara met her oldest son's eyes. "Some men think women are property, things to be bought and sold like cattle. Your father wasn't like that, not at the beginning, but Silas Crane is exactly like that. And now he's punishing us because you said no." Maggie's voice was flat. Understanding. Too old for 11 years. "Yes." Silence fell over the room. Clara let it sit. Let her children process what she'd told them. Eli spoke first. "What are we going to do about it?" "We're going to fight." Clara looked at each of her children in turn. "Mr. Stone is helping us. His lawyer is challenging Crane in court. His men are watching for more attacks. But I need all of you to understand this isn't over. It might get worse before it gets better." "Are we going to die?" Lottie's question was quiet matter-of-fact, the question of a child who'd already faced death once. "No." Clara pulled her daughter close. "No, baby, we're not going to die. I won't let that happen." "You promise?" Clara thought about the fire, about all the promises she'd made in that ring of flame. Promises she couldn't guarantee, promises that were more prayer than certainty. "I promise I'll fight for you. Every breath I have. That's what I can promise." Lottie considered this, then nodded. "Okay, Mama. That's enough." From the mouths of babes. The next week passed in tense preparation. Catherine filed her motions with the territorial court. Caleb called in favors, and men began arriving at Stone Creek, hard-faced riders with weapons well used and eyes that had seen violence. The ranch took on the feeling of a fort under siege, everyone watching the horizon, waiting for the next strike. Clara trained. Sam put a rifle in her hands every morning, drilling her until her aim was steady and her nerve was stone. She learned to reload by feel, to shoot from cover, to keep breathing when her heart wanted to stop. "Not bad," Sam said after a particularly good session. "For a city woman." "I'm not a city woman." "You're not a ranch woman either." "Not yet." Sam handed her more ammunition. "But you're getting there." Eli trained too. Clara watched her son work alongside Tom and the ranch hands, learning to fight in ways that had nothing to do with the schoolyard scuffles of boyhood. Knife work, hand to hand, the brutal efficiency of men who fought to survive, not to prove something. "He's good," Caleb said one evening, standing beside Clara as they watched Eli grapple with Tom. "Natural fighter, quick learner." "I don't want him to be a fighter." "What do you want him to be?" Clara thought about it. "Safe, happy, free to choose his own path." "Can't have freedom without the ability to defend it." Caleb's voice was soft. "Wish it were different, but this territory doesn't care about our wishes." "I know." Clara watched Eli flip Tom onto his back. "I just hoped he'd have more time." "Time for what?" "To be a child." Caleb was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was rough. "Rose never got to be a child either. 3 years old and already learning that the world was dangerous, that people got sick and died, that her papa couldn't always protect her." Clara reached for his hand, found it, held on. "She knew you loved her. That's what matters." "Is it enough?" "It has to be." They stood together in the fading light, watching their children, his and hers, the living and the memory of the lost, learn what it meant to survive. The attack came without warning. 3 weeks after the first raid, in the dead of night, when guards had grown complacent and sleep had claimed even the vigilant. Clara woke to screaming. Not gunfire this time, something worse. A woman's scream, high and terrified, cutting through the darkness like a blade. "Martha." Clara grabbed her rifle and ran. She found chaos in the main house. Martha backed against the wall of the kitchen, a knife in her hand, blood running from a cut on her arm, and in front of her Victor Crane. He turned as Clara burst in his pretty face, twisted into something ugly. In his hand he held a pistol, pointed at Martha's chest. "Well," his voice was silk over steel. "The widow Whitmore. I was hoping you'd join us." "Let her go." "Or what?" Victor's smile widened. "You'll shoot me. With that rifle you can barely hold straight." Clara's hands were shaking. She couldn't stop them. But she raised the rifle anyway, sighting down the barrel at Victor's head. "I said let her go." "You know what I think." Victor stepped closer to Martha, pressing the pistol against her temple. "I think you're bluffing. I think you've never shot a man before, never felt what it's like to watch the life drain out of someone's eyes." "You're right. I haven't." Clara's finger found the trigger. But I'm willing to learn. Something flickered in Victor's expression. Doubt maybe, or just amusement at her bravado. You're interesting, Mrs. Whitmore. I'll give you that. Most women would be crying by now. Begging. I'm not most women. No. His eyes traveled over her in a way that made her skin crawl. No, you're not. That's why my father wanted you. And that's why I'm here. To kidnap me. To make you an offer. Victor's pistol stayed against Martha's temple, but his attention was fully on Clara now. Come with me willingly. Sign over your land rights. Marry my father like you should have done months ago, and everyone lives. And if I refuse, then I kill the old woman. Then I kill Stone. Then I take your children one by one, and you won't touch my children. Won't I? Victor laughed. You can't stop me. You can barely hold that rifle without shaking. Your precious cowboy isn't here. His men are scattered chasing shadows. It's just you and me and this old woman who's about to die unless you make the right choice. Clara's mind raced. Where was Caleb? Where were his men? Why hadn't anyone come? A trap? The whole thing was a trap. Victor's men must have drawn away the guards, created a distraction, left the house vulnerable, left her vulnerable. Clock's ticking, Mrs. Whitmore. Victor pressed the pistol harder against Martha's temple. The older woman whimpered. What's it going to be? Clara thought about her children upstairs. About Eli, probably awake now, probably reaching for whatever weapon he could find. About Maggie, trying to keep the younger ones quiet. About Lottie's wooden horse, and Benny's trusting eyes, and Will's gentle heart, that Jacob said would break so easily. She thought about Samuel, who'd given up when things got hard. She thought about Caleb, who never gave up, who rode into fire, who kept his promises. She thought about Rose, 3 years old, calling for her papa while she died. No, Clara said. Victor blinked. No, no. I won't come with you. I won't sign anything. I won't marry your father. Clara's hands had stopped shaking. Her voice was steady. And you won't kill Martha. You're bluffing. Am I? Clara smiled. It felt strange on her face, cold, certain. You need me alive. Your father needs me alive. A dead widow doesn't sign property transfers. A dead widow becomes a martyr. The territory would turn against you. I could take you by force. You could try. Clara's rifle didn't waver. But the moment you take that gun off Martha, I'll shoot you. Maybe I'll miss. Maybe I won't. You willing to bet your life on it? Victor stared at her. Clara stared back. The moment stretched. Seconds that felt like hours. You've got spine, Victor said finally. More than your drunk husband ever had. More than most men I know. I didn't have a choice. Spine or die. There's always a choice. Victor's expression shifted, not softening but calculating. You chose wrong tonight, Mrs. Whitmore. Remember that. When the consequences come, remember you had a chance to end this peacefully. There's nothing peaceful about you. No. Victor smiled a real smile, somehow more terrifying than the fake ones. There's not. He lowered the pistol from Martha's head. Clara tensed, waiting for a trick. We'll meet again, Victor said, backing toward the door. Under less civilized circumstances, and when we do, I won't give you a choice. I'll be ready. I'm counting on it. He was gone before Clara could respond. Out the door into the night swallowed by darkness. Clara dropped the rifle. Her legs gave out. She hit the floor hard, gasping, shaking the terror she'd held at bay, finally crashing through her defenses. Clara. Martha was beside her, arms wrapping around her shoulders. Clara, child, breathe. The children. I have to the children. They're safe. Listen. Clara forced herself to hear past the pounding of her own heart. Footsteps upstairs. Eli's voice sharp with fear but controlled. Maggie answering. Lottie crying. Benny wailing. Alive. All of them alive. You were very brave, Martha said softly. Stupid, but brave. I wasn't bluffing. Clara's voice came out hoarse. I would have shot him. I know. That's what scared him. Martha helped her stand. Men like Victor Crane expect women to fold. You didn't fold, it threw him off. He'll be back. Yes, he will. Martha's eyes were hard. But now he knows what he's dealing with. That's worth something. Clara thought about Victor's promise, the consequences, the next meeting under less civilized circumstances. Where's Caleb? Out there somewhere. He'll be back soon. I need to see him. You need to see your children. They're frightened. Clara nodded. Martha was right. Her children came first. Always. She climbed the stairs on legs that still trembled, rifle clutched in hands that had finally stopped shaking. And when she opened the door to find 5 pairs of eyes staring at her 5 children, who needed her to be strong, to be certain to be the rock that never crumbled, she found the strength somehow. It's okay, she said, gathering them close. We're okay. The bad man is gone. For now, Eli said quietly. He was holding a kitchen knife, his face pale but determined. For now, Clara agreed. But we'll be ready for next time. How do you know? Clara thought about the rifle in her hands, about the choice she'd made to fight instead of fold, about the certainty that had settled into her bones when Victor pressed that pistol to Martha's head, and she'd realized with perfect clarity that she would die before she let him take anything else from her. Because I know who we are, she said. We're Whitmores, and Whitmores don't give up. Eli's knife lowered. Something shifted in his expression, the boy giving way finally to the man underneath. No, he said, we don't. Caleb returned an hour later, his face grim with fury. A diversion. They hit the north pasture, drew us out while Victor... He stopped when he saw Clara's face. He was here. He was here. Did he? I'm fine. Martha's fine. The children are fine. Clara's voice was flat, exhausted. He wanted me to go with him. Sign over the land. Marry his father. And you said no. I pointed a rifle at his head and told him I'd shoot him if he didn't leave. Something crossed Caleb's face, shock maybe, or pride, or something else entirely. Clara, I know it was stupid. He could have killed me, but I couldn't... Her voice broke. I couldn't let him take Martha. Couldn't let him take anything else. Caleb crossed the room in 3 strides. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her against his chest, holding her like she might shatter if he let go. You're not stupid, he said into her hair. You're magnificent. Clara laughed, a broken sound, half sob. I'm terrified. Good. Means you're not foolish. He pulled back enough to look at her face. His hands framed her cheeks, rough and gentle all at once. Victor will be back. Crane won't let this go. But tonight you won. You faced him down and you won. It doesn't feel like winning. It never does. Not in the middle of it. His thumb traced the line of her jaw. But we're still here. Your children are still safe. That's what matters. Clara leaned into his touch, let herself just for a moment stop being strong. I can't do this alone, she whispered. I thought I could, thought I had to, but tonight, you're not alone. Caleb's voice was fierce. You haven't been alone since I pulled you out of that fire, and you won't be alone as long as I'm breathing. That's not a promise you can keep. It's the only promise I can keep. He pressed his forehead to hers. Clara, I know I'm broken. Know I've got nothing to offer except land and scars and a heart that barely works anymore. But whatever I have, it's yours, if you want it. Clara pulled back to look at him. Really look. The hard lines of his face softened by lamplight. The storm-gray eyes that had seen too much death and too little joy. The scar that told the story of a violent past. The hands that had built an empire and buried a family and pulled 5 children from fire. This man, this impossible, broken, beautiful man. "I want it," she said. "All of it. Whatever you're offering." Caleb kissed her. Not gentle, not tentative, but desperate, hungry, like he was drowning and she was air. Clara kissed him back with everything she had, all the fear and the fury and the fierce determination to survive. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Caleb rested his forehead against hers again. "We'll fight this together," he said. "Crane, Victor, whatever comes." "Together," Clara agreed. It wasn't a marriage proposal, wasn't a declaration of eternal love, but it was something more honest than either a partnership forged in fire and sealed in the crucible of a night that could have ended in blood. Whatever came next, they would face it side by side, and somehow that made the future feel possible. The sun rose on a ranch preparing for war. Caleb doubled the guards, reinforced the gates, sent riders to every ally he had, calling in favors that went back 20 years. Men arrived throughout the day, hard men with harder eyes, the kind who'd seen enough violence to know when more was coming. Clara worked beside them, not fighting, but planning. Organizing supplies, coordinating schedules, making sure everyone was fed and armed and ready. She had a gift for it, Caleb told her. The ability to see the whole picture, to know what needed doing before anyone else thought of it. "You should have been a general," he said one afternoon, watching her direct a supply wagon. "I was a mother, same thing really." He laughed a real laugh, surprised out of him. Clara stored the sound away like something precious. She'd heard him laugh twice now, 3 times, each one felt like a victory. Catherine sent word from town. Crane's lawyers were scrambling. The water theft charges had teeth. The territorial judge was asking questions. Things were moving in their favor. But Victor's threat hung over everything. The promise of consequences, the certainty that something worse was coming. Clara found herself watching her children more closely, counting heads at every meal, checking on them throughout the night, making sure they were breathing, making sure they were there. Eli noticed. "Mama, you're not sleeping." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're scared." Her son's voice was steady. "I am too. But we can't fight if we're exhausted." "Since when did you get so wise?" "Since someone had to be." Eli's mouth quirked. Almost a smile. "You've spent 15 years taking care of us. Maybe it's time to let someone take care of you." Clara looked at her son, this boy who'd become a man, this child who'd learned to be strong because circumstance demanded it. She thought about Samuel, who'd failed at fatherhood before dying from it. About the example she'd tried to set, the lessons she'd tried to teach. Maybe some of them had stuck. "I'll try to sleep," she said. "But you have to promise me something." "What?" "If something happens, if Crane comes and things go bad, you get your brother and sisters out. Don't wait for me. Don't try to fight. Just run." "Mama." "Promise me, Eli." Her son's jaw tightened. For a moment he looked so much like Samuel, the Samuel she'd married, the one who'd believed in things that Clara's heart cracked. "I promise," he said finally. "But you have to promise me something too." "What?" "Don't die." Eli's voice broke. I can't lose you too, Mama. I'm not strong enough." Clara pulled him into her arms. He was taller than her now, had been for months. But in that moment, he was still her baby, still the boy who'd cried when his father stopped coming home sober. "I'll do my best," she whispered. "That's all any of us can do." "That's not a promise." "No, it's not." She pulled back, meeting his eyes. "But it's the truth, and the truth is worth more than pretty lies." Eli nodded slowly. "Yeah, it is." That night, Clara slept. Not well, not peacefully, but she slept. And in the morning, when word came that Silas Crane was riding toward Stone Creek with 20 men at his back, she was ready. ready to face whatever came, ready to fight for her family, ready finally to stop surviving and start living, even if living meant risking everything. Clara watched them come. 20 riders kicking up dust on the main road, moving with the slow certainty of men who believed they'd already won. At their head, Silas Crane rode a white stallion, his back straight, his expensive clothes pristine despite the journey. Beside him, Victor. "They're not hiding," Caleb said, standing at Clara's shoulder. "Coming straight up the road like they own the place. They think they do. They're wrong." Clara turned to look at him. His jaw was set, his eyes hard, but beneath the stone exterior she could see something else. Not fear. Caleb Stone didn't fear death, but concern. For her. For the children. For everything they'd built in the weeks since she'd stumbled into his life covered in ash and desperate prayers. "Whatever happens today," she said quietly, "thank you. Don't. Don't what? Don't thank me like this is goodbye." Caleb's hand found hers gripped tight. "This isn't goodbye, Clara. Not today. Not ever. You can't promise that. Watch me." The riders stopped 100 yards from the main gate. Silas Crane dismounted with the ease of a man used to having others wait for him. Victor stayed in his saddle, his eyes scanning the compound with cold calculation. "Stone," Silas's voice carried across the distance. "I believe we have business to discuss." Caleb squeezed Clara's hand once, then released it. "Stay here." "Caleb, I mean it. Whatever happens, you stay behind this gate. You don't come out. You don't put yourself in their reach. And if they kill you, then you take your children and you run. Tom knows the back routes. He'll get you out." Clara grabbed his arm. "I didn't survive fire to watch you die. And I didn't pull you from fire to let them take you." Caleb's eyes met hers, gray storms and fierce determination. "Trust me, please." Clara wanted to argue, wanted to demand that she stand beside him, fight beside him, face whatever came together. But she thought of her children. Eli watching from the barn with a rifle he knew how to use. Maggie and Will in the root cellar with Martha. Lottie clutching her wooden horse whispering prayers she was too young to know. Benny in his cradle oblivious to everything. 5 children who needed her to survive. "Go," she said, "but come back." "I intend to." Caleb walked through the gate alone. Clara watched him cross the open ground between the compound and Crane's men. He moved like he had all the time in the world, like 20 armed riders didn't concern him in the slightest. When he stopped 10 feet from Silas Crane, his posture was loose, ready. "You brought an army to my front door," Caleb said. "That's not usually how civilized men conduct business." "Civilized?" Silas laughed. "You're harboring a woman who belongs to me. You've interfered in territorial legal matters. You've turned your ranch into a fortress against legitimate authorities." He spread his hands. "This isn't a social call, Stone. This is a reckoning. Clara Whitmore doesn't belong to you. Never did, never will. She should have accepted my proposal when she had the chance. Now," Silas smiled cold and sharp, "now the terms have changed." "What terms?" "The widow comes with me, willingly. Signs over her land rights, her water access, everything she owns." Silas's eyes found Clara watching from the gate. "In exchange, I let you live. Let your men live. Let this little empire of yours continue standing. And if she refuses, then we burn it all." Victor spoke for the first time, his voice carrying the promise of violence. "Starting with her children." Clara's blood turned to ice. "Touch her children," Caleb said softly, "and there won't be a hole deep enough for you to hide in." Big words from a man outnumbered 3-1. Count again. Movement on the ridgeline. Clara's breath caught as she saw them riders emerging from the trees, from the rocks, from every direction. Caleb's allies, the favors he'd called in. Men with hard faces and ready weapons surrounding Crane's force like wolves circling prey. Silas's expression flickered. Just for a moment. Just enough. You think numbers matter. The old man's voice had lost some of its certainty. The law is on my side, the territorial authority. The territorial authority is investigating you for water theft, bribery, and accessory to attempted murder. Catherine Wells's voice rang out as she rode through the gate to stand beside Caleb. I received word this morning. Judge Harrison has issued warrants. Your men can't protect you from a courtroom, Mr. Crane. This is harassment, fabrication. This is evidence. Catherine held up a sheaf of papers. Sworn statements from a dozen homesteaders you've threatened and extorted over the years. Financial records showing payments to territorial officials. And my personal favorite. She smiled. A signed confession from the surveyor you paid to falsify property boundaries. Silas's face went gray. You're finished, Caleb said. Legally, financially, socially. The only question is whether you leave my property quietly or whether we add resisting arrest to the list of charges. You can't. I can. I am. Caleb stepped forward. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to turn around. You're going to ride back to your ranch, and you're going to wait for the territorial marshals to come collect you. And if I don't, then these men surrounding you will help change your mind. Silence stretched across the morning air. Clara held her breath, watching Silas Crane's face cycle through emotions, rage, calculation, desperation. Beside him, Victor's hand twitched toward his gun. Don't. Caleb's voice was soft, deadly. I've been waiting for an excuse, boy. Don't give me one. Victor's hand stopped. Father. His voice was tight. We should go. This isn't over. No. Caleb agreed. It's not. But it's over for today. And tomorrow, when you're sitting in a territorial cell waiting for trial, you'll have plenty of time to think about how you got there. Silas stared at Caleb for a long moment. Something passed between them, a message Clara couldn't read, a history she didn't know. Then the old man turned and mounted his horse. This isn't finished, Stone, not by a long shot. It is for Clara Whitmore. Touch her, threaten her, even look at her wrong. Caleb's voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. And the law will be the least of your problems. Silas gathered his reins. His men fell in behind him. Victor was the last to turn away, his eyes finding Clara one final time, promising things that made her skin crawl. Then they were gone. Clara's knees buckled. She caught herself on the gatepost, gasping suddenly, unable to hold herself upright. All the fear she'd suppressed, all the terror she'd locked away, it came flooding back, overwhelming her defenses, turning her bones to water. Clara. Caleb was there, arms around her, holding her up. Clara, it's okay. They're gone. For now. For good. He pulled back to look at her face. The evidence Catherine found, it's damning. Crane's going to prison. Victor too, if we're lucky. And if we're not lucky, then we deal with it, together. Caleb's hands framed her face. But today, right now, we won. You won. Clara wanted to believe him, wanted to let go of the fear that had been her constant companion since the fire, since before the fire, since Samuel started drinking, and the world became a place where safety was an illusion. Mama! Will's voice shattered the moment. Clara turned to see her son running from the barn, followed by Eli and Maggie. Behind them, Martha emerged from the main house with Lottie on her hip and Benny in her arms. Her children, all of them, safe. Mama, is it over? Will crashed into her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Did the bad men go away? They went away, baby. For good. Clara looked at Caleb, looked at Catherine still holding her damning papers, looked at the riders on the ridgeline, loyal men who'd come when called. For good, she said. The days that followed were strange, quiet after so much chaos, peaceful after so much fear. Clara found herself jumping at shadows, reaching for a rifle that wasn't there, waiting for the next attack that didn't come. Catherine handled the legal matters with brutal efficiency. Silas Crane was arrested 3 days after the confrontation. Victor fled, disappeared in the night, heading for California or Mexico or some other place where his father's sins couldn't follow. "We could pursue him," Catherine said. "File extradition requests." "Let him go." Clara surprised herself with the words. "He's running scared. That's punishment enough. And if he comes back, then we deal with it." Clara looked at Caleb. Together. Catherine left for Cheyenne with promises to return for the final court hearings. The allies dispersed back to their own ranches. Debts paid, favors balanced. Stone Creek returned to something resembling normal. But normal had changed. Clara's children had stopped sleeping in the guest room. Eli had his own space near the bunkhouse, now learning ranch work alongside Tom. Maggie had claimed a corner of the library as her own, surrounded by Abigail's books. Will spent every free moment in the barn with old Jacob, who'd recovered enough to resume his horse-whispering duties. And Lottie, little Lottie, who'd been so afraid of everything, had started following Caleb around the property like a small shadow. "She likes you," Clara said one evening, watching her daughter sit beside Caleb on the porch while he carved. "She's got good taste." Caleb glanced up with something that might have been a smile. "She asked me about Rose today." Clara's heart clenched. "What did you tell her?" "The truth. That I had a daughter once. That she died. That I miss her every day." His hands kept moving the knife shaping wood into form. "She said she was sorry. Then she asked if Rose would mind sharing her papa with someone else." Clara's eyes burned. "What did you say?" "I said Rose would have liked that very much." Caleb set down the knife. The figure in his hands was taking shape, a girl this time, not a horse. "I said Rose was generous with love and anyone who wanted some could have it." "Caleb." "She asked if she could call me Papa sometimes." His voice cracked. "Just sometimes. When she needed one." Clara couldn't speak, could barely breathe. "I told her yes." Caleb looked at her, and his eyes were wet. "Was that okay?" Clara crossed the porch and fell into his arms. "Yes," she whispered against his chest. "That was okay." They stayed like that until the sun set, until Lottie came looking for them, demanding to see what Caleb was carving, until the moment broke into laughter and normalcy, and something that felt almost like family. Almost, but not quite, not yet. The proposal came on a Tuesday. Clara was in the kitchen helping Martha with bread when Caleb appeared in the doorway. He looked uncomfortable, more uncomfortable than she'd ever seen him, including when he'd faced down 20 armed men. "Clara, can we talk?" "Now. Now." Martha made a suspiciously knowing sound and vanished with her dough. Caleb led Clara to his study, the same study where she'd first learned about his family, about the grief that had turned him to stone. Now it felt different, warmer, like something had changed in the walls themselves. "I'm not good at this," Caleb said without preamble. "Good at what?" "Words, feelings, the things that are supposed to matter." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I've been practicing what to say for 2 days, had a whole speech worked out, and now you're looking at me, and I can't remember any of it." Clara bit her lip to keep from smiling. This man, this fierce, broken, impossible man, was nervous. Because of her. "Maybe don't try to be fancy," she suggested. "Just say what you mean." "What I mean." Caleb took a breath. "What I mean is, I don't deserve you. Don't deserve your children, your trust, any of it. I've done things, Clara, bad things, things that don't wash off." "So have I." "Not like this." "You don't know what I've done." Clara stepped closer. "You don't know the things I thought about Samuel at the end. The relief I felt when he died. The guilt I carry for being glad my children's father put a bullet in his own head. Clara. I'm not clean either, Caleb. None of us are. We do what we have to do to survive, and sometimes that means becoming people we never thought we'd be." She reached up to touch his face. But we can choose who we become next. That's what matters. Caleb leaned into her touch. I love you. The words came out rough, surprised, like he hadn't meant to say them. I didn't think I could after Abigail, after Rose, but I do. I love you, Clara. And I love your children. All of them. Even Will's endless questions. Especially Will's endless questions. Almost a smile. And Eli's stubborn pride. And Maggie's too smart observations. And Lottie's wooden horse collection. And Benny's habit of putting everything in his mouth. That's a lot of loving. I've got a lot of years to make up for. Clara's heart was pounding. She knew what was coming, could feel it building like a storm on the horizon. Ask me, she whispered. Clara Jane Whitmore. Caleb took her hands. His grip was steady, his eyes unwavering. Will you marry me? Will you let me be a father to your children? A partner in your life? Will you let me spend whatever years I have left trying to deserve you? Yes. You didn't even think about it. I've been thinking about it since the fire. Clara rose on her toes and kissed him soft, certain, promising. The answer was always going to be yes. The wedding took place a month later, simple by Clara's request. Just family and close friends gathered in the barn where Caleb had first carried her after the fire. Martha had strung ribbons from the rafters. Old Jacob had cleaned up the horses until they gleamed. Catherine Wells had come from Cheyenne with the legal papers and a rare smile. Clara wore a dress Maggie had helped her make, nothing fancy, just clean cotton and her mother's pearls. She walked down the makeshift aisle with Eli on one arm and Benny on her hip. Her other children clustered around her like a small, determined army. Caleb waited at the end wearing his best clothes and an expression of such naked hope it nearly broke her heart. The preacher kept things short. Simple vows, simple promises, the kind that meant something precisely because they weren't ornate. Do you take this woman? I do. And do you take this man? I do. Then by the power vested in me by the territory of Wyoming, I pronounce you man and wife. Caleb kissed her, and the barn erupted in cheers. Later, after the food and the dancing and the endless stream of well-wishes, Clara found a quiet moment on the porch. The same porch where she'd first told Caleb about Samuel. The same porch where they'd shared their first kiss. You're thinking, Caleb said, settling beside her. I'm remembering. The fire? All of it. The fire. Samuel. The years of scraping by, wondering if we'd make it through the next winter. Clara leaned against his shoulder. I spent so long just surviving. I forgot what it felt like to live. And now. Clara looked up at the stars scattered across the Wyoming sky. Now I have a home, a husband, a future for my children. Things I stopped letting myself want because wanting hurt too much. Does it still hurt? No. Clara turned to face him. It feels like breathing. Natural. Necessary. Right. Caleb's arms came around her, held her close. I'm going to mess this up, he said quietly. Going to make mistakes. Say wrong things. Be too hard or too soft or too broken. So will I. Then we'll mess it up together. That's all I've ever wanted. Clara kissed his cheek. Someone to mess things up with. They sat together as the moon rose, listening to the sounds of their family, inside children laughing, Martha scolding Tom and Eli arguing about horses. The sounds of life, imperfect and chaotic and absolutely beautiful. Clara thought about the fire. About the moment she'd given up, ready to let the flames take everything. About the stranger who'd ridden out of hell to save her. Not a stranger anymore. Her husband, her partner, her future. The spring came soft and green. Clara watched her children scatter across the land that was now truly theirs. Eli working the cattle alongside Tom, Maggie, reading beneath the old oak tree. Will racing between the barn and the house with messages for anyone who'd listen. Lottie helping Martha in the garden. Benny toddling after anyone who'd let him follow. They'd rebuilt her homestead. Not a cabin this time, but a proper house with glass windows and a real floor. Everything Samuel had promised and never delivered. It stood empty most of the time, rented out to a young couple just starting their own homestead journey. "Full circle," Clara said, watching from the ridge. "What's that?" Caleb pulled his horse up beside hers. "That house. Those people." Clara smiled. "I was them once, young and scared and certain the world was going to crush us. And now I know the world tries to crush everyone. The difference is whether you let it." Caleb reached across the distance between their horses and took her hand. "You didn't let it. Neither did you." They rode back to Stone Creek as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Clara thought about fire, how it had tried to take everything from her, how it had nearly succeeded. But fire didn't just destroy. It cleared the ground for new growth. It burned away the dead wood so something fresh could take root. She'd been burned, scarred, changed in ways she was still discovering. But she'd also been forged, tempered, made into something stronger than she'd been before. At the ranch, her family waited, her children safe and growing. Her husband healed and healing still. The extended family they'd built from broken pieces and stubborn hope, Martha, Tom, old Jacob, and all the others who'd become part of their story. Lottie ran to meet them at the gate, her wooden horse clutched in one hand. "Mama, Papa, guess what Benny said my name? He said Lottie, clear as anything." Clara dismounted and scooped her daughter into her arms. "That's wonderful, baby." "Old Jacob says I'm a good teacher. Says maybe I could teach the new horses too when they come." "Maybe you could." Lottie wrapped her arms around Clara's neck, holding tight with the fierce trust of a child who'd learned that love could be relied on. "Mama." "Yes, baby." "Are we home now for real?" Clara looked at the house rising against the sunset, at Caleb dismounting beside her, his hand coming to rest on the small of her back. At her other children, emerging from various corners of the compound, drawn by Lottie's excited shouts. She thought about all the houses she'd lived in, the cabin where Samuel had broken, the homestead that had burned, the borrowed room where she'd first learned to hope again. None of them had been home. Not really. Home wasn't walls and floors and roofs. Home was this, these people, this family built from fire and loss, and stubborn, impossible love. "Yes, baby," Clara said, her heart full to bursting. "We're home now, for real." The sun set over Stone Creek Ranch and Clara Whitmore. Clara Stone now stood in the golden light with her husband's arm around her and her children's laughter in her ears. She'd survived fire. She'd survived loss. She'd survived everything the world had thrown at her. And she'd come out the other side, not just alive, but living. Not just enduring, but thriving. And if more fires came, because more fires always came, she'd survive those too. Because that's what she did. That's who she was. A mother, a wife, a survivor. And finally, at long last, someone who'd found her way home.